And so the thing that I wanted to comment on really is just that, this happened like after Thanksgiving and after what that's what they have in America, right? Thanksgiving and before Christmas. So it's in the holiday period. And like the most famous story of the holiday period, the most well known, the most repeated story, maybe apart from Jesus' own story, right? But the modern times, the one that you've seen various versions of, you've maybe read it, you've maybe read an abridged version as a kid, you've maybe seen a theater version as a kid, you've seen like two or three different movie versions, you've seen episodes of countless series, like obviously the most obvious is like Simpsons, right? In the Simpsons, there's an episode of Cinderella. There's an episode of all these classic stories, right? Well, this is one of those stories. A Christmas Carol. Here we are coming up to Christmas. A Christmas Carol. Ebenezer Scrooge. So what happens there is that when the final ghost, the third ghost comes, the ghost of future Christmas, he says to him, "Hey, look. That, by the way, you don't think Brian Thompson has seen Scrooge, the movie? Since not Scrooge has read the Christmas Carol. He doesn't. He's never heard the story of Christmas Carol. He's never been like watching a version of it and thought, wait, if I was in this world, I would be Ebenezer Scrooge. That's who I would be. And maybe he thinks that no, because Scrooge, didn't get married because he had a problem with his love and he didn't have children and shit. So he's probably like, well, I did get married and I do have love and I do have children, so I'm not Ebenezer Scrooge. Dude, you're worse than Ebenezer Scrooge. He was just like he owned a few properties in London or some shit and like run some market stalls or whatever. He wasn't dealing with like millions of people. He didn't have millions of deaths on his hand. But he'd have some deaths on his hand. There was people who couldn't pay and he threw them out in the cold and then they would die or whatever. He would send them he would say they should go to the poorhouses, which if you know anything about the history of the UK at that time, the poorhouses were pretty bad places. You don't want to be there. And so anyway, when the third ghost comes, the ghost of the future, Christmas future, he says, "Look, there you are." He doesn't say anything; he just points, right? But he's basically saying, "Look, there you are in the bed there." And Ebenezer refuses to lift the cover up to see the face of the body who's there. It's obviously him, but he's just like pretending that he doesn't realize that it's him. So he says, "Oh, this poor wretched soul. Show me some people who knew him or whatever." And so they go and they see like other businessmen that he worked with, and they were like, "Oh, old fucking dickhead's dead." Like they were the people who he spent most time communing with, and that he probably thought that he was closest with, even though he's not close to them at all. But they were just like, "Yo, fucking dickhead's dead." And then there's like these ladies, or these two guys and a lady, and they've gone to Scrooge's uh, living quarters, his home, and they've ransacked it, and they've taken like the curtains off the bed where he's sleeping. I'm not sure if they actually took the shirt off him or a different shirt, or but anyway, they stole all of his stuff. They maybe stole like jewelry that he was possibly wearing, and they took that off his dead body, or the sheets off the bed that he was on when he was there dead and shit. And they didn't give a fuck, and they were like, "Yo, fuck that guy." When they were selling it when they're selling the stuff to the pawnbroker guy or whatever, they were all like, "Yo, fuck that guy," in Dickensian language, obviously. And then he goes, "Oh, take me to somebody who feels good, who feels good because of this guy." And so he takes him to somebody, and they only feel good because it's somebody who they're right up to the end. They just can't pay this debt, and so Scrooge is going to kick him out into the street, and because he's died, the debt is going to be passed on to another person, and that will take an amount of time, and that amount of time will give them enough time to make up that little bit of extra money that they need, a few weeks or whatever it is. They'll be able to pay the new debtor, the new debt owner, when he takes over the debt. And so they're like the only people who feel any warmth or happiness or anything related to Ebenezer Scrooge. And even they're like, "Oh, that fucking asshole," but like, "Oh, I guess he's done us one favor by dying right at this perfect moment that allows us to just scrape through." before this debt gets passed on to another, probably equally as horrific human, right? So what's my point of all this? Well, this is a famous story. Everybody's watched it. Brian's watched it. All these people on these news channels who are like, we can't understand the lack of sympathy. All those people are saying, every year of my life since I was a baby till now, every time I have read or watched or listened to any version of A Christmas Carol, this has been my expression. Huh? I don't understand why this is happening. What is this book about? Why are they? Why would nobody have sympathy for Ebenezer Scrooge? Why do none of these characters have sympathy for Ebenezer Scrooge? Fuck them. Fuck them. The ghost of future Christmas, on seeing those people being like, I have no sympathy for Ebenezer Scrooge, he should take a moment and go, wait a minute, who are the real monsters in this picture? These fuckers who have no sympathy, that's who they are. Do you know what, Ebs? Sorry for being the silent type up until now, but the ghost, has seen the error of my ways. And don't worry, that this future is not for you. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna fucking dream up in these guys' shit and be like, hey, look at you there, having no sympathy for Ebenezer, you fuck. And I'm gonna scare these fucks to death instead. Sorry for bothering you all night with my two buddies there, Ebs. That's fucking crazy. That's what they're saying. That's what they were so confused. They just never understood the story every year. And everyone else is like, oh, what a great story. And they're like, I don't get it. I'm not sure what the moral is here. Seems like a really, one of those movies where the bad guy wins. The fuck? So yeah, that's the world that we're in, man. This is some fucking virtue signaling shit, or they get their ad money from here, or they want to go on these shows, and if their money is coming from big companies, then obviously they're going to be like, "Hey, don't kill CEOs, because they pay our bills." That's really what's happening, disguised as virtue signaling. The virtue signaling is the idea that they would be virtue signaling is better than the idea that they're just defending these CEOs for a paycheck, a measly paycheck in comparison to what these CEOs fucking live off, right? But they're just defending the CEO for a paycheck. But what they're making it seem like is they're doing insincere virtue signaling, and insincere virtue signaling is fucking disgusting, highly frowned upon, but it's a good cover for what do we say, carrying water for these fucking disgusting companies who kill millions of people with a pen. So they would rather be seen to be insincere virtue signalers than water carriers for pure living in a human body evil. The end.